Hi everyone, Mr. Peabody here. I'm just going to tell you a bit more about this Washburn guitar that I bought. Now, I took it apart, I cleaned it up, I polished all the frets, I polished everything, I cleaned everything, and it needed a good clean. I took the old strings off, and the old strings were disgusting. They really were bad. So I didn't really want to play it. When I first got this guitar, it sounded very flat. And the reason is because the strings were so old. And there's two reasons why you change strings on a guitar. One, if they're old, and two, if they break. Now, when I say old, I mean the strings on this guitar were really old. And what happens is, you've got oil and dirt on your fingers, and you're playing the strings all the time. The strings are they're wound bronze, all right. So they're like a coil of wire. Well, for the most part, for four of the strings they are. For the other two, they're just straight wire. But for four of the strings, they are wound bronze, which means that your oil and crap in your hands gets stuck in between the winds. It's like a really tightly wound spring. So you can imagine if you ran your fingers up and down a spring, you're going to lose some skin and some oil, and it's going to get trapped in between. That's what happens with guitar strings. And what that does is it basically muffles the string. So instead of giving a nice clean ring to it, it sounds like crap. The other two strings are just basically straight steel. But what happens is, over time, and this is what happened to this guitar, over time, muck gathers up in these strings, and these strings are open. And you also get muck and rust. Rust happens on strings, and when rust happens on strings, it's so much easier to cut your fingers on the string. So that's why you change the strings fairly regularly, even if they're not broken. Now, if you don't have the budget to replace the strings all the time, there's another way out of it, which I don't advise, but you can do it. If your strings are all clogged up with your oil and flecks of skin and things like that, and they're all clogged up, you can take the strings off and boil them. You can boil the strings and then put them back on the guitar. But I mean, these days, to buy a set of strings, it's so cheap. Just buy a new set of strings and put new strings on. So this guitar has been fully cleaned, it's been fully polished, and it's got a brand new set of strings on it. Now, the problem that I had was, I ordered two new sets of strings, and both sets are exactly the same, and they're both the wrong set of strings that I ordered. I ordered medium because I play heavy. I'm a heavy player, and I break strings like they're going out of fashion. They sent me two sets of light strings. So the person that I bought these strings off, they're not going to get a good review, because they sent me the wrong strings. I asked for medium gauge, they sent me light gauge. And anybody that's a guitarist knows there's a big difference. These strings are basically the same gauge that's on my electric guitar. Now, everybody knows that an electric guitar you play slightly differently to an acoustic guitar. But putting those strings on an acoustic guitar, for me, is death to strings, because I will slice through these like they're butter. But anyway, that's all I had, and the guitar had no strings, and I needed to get it back up and running, so I put the new strings on. So I can play this, but I'm not all that confident about how long the strings are going to last. But the sound is so much different. Sorry, I've only tuned it once. It needs tuning again. There you go. But you can hear straight away the guitar is much more vibrant, it's more crisp, and it's actually easier to play because there's no muck on the strings. So I know that doesn't make much sense to people that don't play guitar, but the people that do play guitar are going to pick that up straight away. Anyway, that's just it. That's all I had to say. See ya.